Hi there. This is just a deck profile for my budget Chimera Fiendsmith technically deck. It has no engraver in the deck, which is what makes it budget. Um, as I'm sure many people watching this are like me. I'm poor, I've got bills to pay, so I decided the deck could still be good enough even without it, and it was better than my usual decks. I usually play Red Dragon Archfiend, stuff like that, so I decided this deck, I would rather play something that doesn't lose to Ash. Previously, I've only played Chimera two other times. I was playing it with some branded stuff when not LED, but the Fiendsmith set, I forget what it's called. Whenever that set came out, I played this a couple of times with a branded engine. It was okay. I broke even every time I played it, but this week I really managed to level it up. I worked a lot in the combos going in. So even though I didn't have too much experience on the deck, I did manage to perform well with it. And I will show some combos later on in the video. I'll just go over the basic stuff, but I would say for this deck it's better to actually experience playing it and get the flow of things rather than just trying to do combos, because it branches out a lot. Like your plays are always changing depending on what happens. So, and it's very like free flowing depending on your hand. So, yeah. Apologies, I don't really do many deck profiles, so if there's any issues with it, sorry about that. I try my best, but yeah. So let's jump into it. So start off, we have 3 Gazelle, the best starter in the deck. 3 Coatl, another starter. 3 Nightmare Apprentice. This is the most expensive card in the deck. It's a little cheaper now because Chimera hasn't done too much recently, but you could technically get away with just 1 for the combos. If you want to be really budget, you could do that, but it's really useful for playing through hand traps. 2 Mirror Swordknight and 3 Chimera Fusion. You could maybe play a 3rd Mirror Swordknight, or you could play just 1. Depends. I think a lot of decks are playing Ash right now because Ash counters Fugaros, so I really don't like starting on Mirror Swordknight, but it is useful. And being able to spec Berfomet is really strong. So then for the one-offs, we've got 1 Big Wing Berfomet, 1 Master Tau, 1 Barrier Statue. This is my Floodgate monster of choice. You've got Diebells as well, King Tiger Wangu, other popular options. I decided this was my preferred option for them, just because of the way the combo works, which I'll show later. You're able to get this guy out very easily. But additionally, compared to Diebells, if this card is in hand and you're stuck, you can just normal summon this card, and that actually came up for me today. And that can end up being quite strong, depending on what you're playing. For example, against Fire Kings, they're not going to be able to use the level 8 that specs itself from hand. I'm forgetting his name. Kieran, sorry. Yes, Kieran. They're not, like, that card just completely turns it off. It's too big for Snake Eye monsters to run over, that sort of thing. I really like this card. It was my Floodgate monster choice. And then the Spice that allows you to bridge into some of these strong extra deck monsters without Fiendsmith cards is Chaos Betrayer. And I'll explain why this card's strong in the combos. But basically, you just banish a light and dark monster from your grave while it's engraved. Then you can special summon itself, and as a bonus, it can banish a card from your opponent's graveyard when it's summoned. It's not too important, but it can come up a wee bit. Like, for example, banishing Dominus Impulse. So if they have another, or just banishing like an Imperm or something from their graveyard. So when they Dominus Impulse, it doesn't have its destruction effect. That's something that came up for me. But yes, that's the Chimera engine. And then got the 3 Frightfur Patchwork, 2 Polymerization, and 2 Edge Imp Chain. This is like personal preference. Some people like 222, some people like 221, some people like 321. I really like seeing the Frightfur Patchwork because like I've got a little more space because I'm not playing Fiendsmith stuff. I just really like Frightfur Patchwork. It's a strong card. It's like really good ash bait. And then like even if they don't ash it, resolving it, you're getting a +2. It just ends up really nice. And just Jimp's got like just a lot of uses. You can end up in a scenario maybe where you even have to fuse 2 of these off into a aerial eater, but that can end up just not the worst thing in the world. Yeah, I just like these cards. They're strong, obviously. Now for the non-engine, I play 3 Ash Blossom. Full Rose is running rampant. I feel like you need to play this card. It's really strong, and it's better against Tempai than Imperm and Veiler, just because you don't have to worry about the cards disappearing basically when you try to target them. Oh, speaking of that, I do have 3 Imperm because it's a generically strong hand trap and it's not once per turn, so if you draw multiples of it, it's pretty good. And it's also good going second if you draw off the top of the deck. That's generally better than drawing Ash off the top of your deck. Next, I've got 3 Book of Eclipse. This is one of the really, really strong cards in this deck, and it's like one of the real good reasons to play it is because you get basically the maximum value of this card. You can use it as a board breaker. You can use it as a disruption piece if you're going first, and it also acts as a way to protect your monsters from targeted negation, like Infinite Impermanence, like Effect Veiler, that sort of thing. Yeah, just really, really strong card. It feels really good to play in this deck. Some decks, like, you're like, do I want to play, do I not? This deck, I feel like it's absolutely mandatory, very good. Then the MVP for the day, Super Poly. I almost didn't play this, but I got sold on it. It's just, for your deck specifically, it's really good against Azumina, because they play lots of illusion monsters that can help you bridge into your engine. And then there's just lots of other decks in the meta where it's really good against. In theory, it's really good against Tempai because they're all like fire dragons. I played this card in the main deck about 10 matches against Tempai, and I've never once seen it, which really grinds my gears. But in theory, it's really good in that matchup. And then there's like rogue stuff as well, like Voice's Voice, that sort of thing. And then to finish it off, I've got 2 Talon and 1 Callby. Just strong generic cards, good going first, good going second. You could maybe cut some cards here and there if you want to put in a 3rd Talon. I feel like I always draw talent off of talents when I go for draw 2, so I never like to play more than 2. But yeah, I just kept it pretty simple with the non-engine. And yeah, of course, budget profiles and no impulse, no funerals. Otherwise, you definitely would be playing those cards. Not sure what I'd swap out, but yeah, they're obviously very good. So for the extra deck, so we do have some Fiendsmith cards. So we got the Fiendsmith Requiem, Moon of the Closed Heaven, Fiendsmith Sequence, IP Masquerena, Muckracker, and Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avramax. So the theory, yeah. This card, you basically just want to get to this card, which this card helps facilitate, because you can use it as material for Berfomet or for your Aerial Eater, essentially. So you just want to play this card to give extra materials for when you're going into this. But this card just good. It lets you expand your plays. It's a 2 material link if you want to like link claim, and if you're in a pickle as well, if your like Chimera Fusion's been stopped or whatever, your polymerization's been stopped, this is another way to just get into your engine. So this card's like, yeah, this is the king. And then same for Muckracker. Muckracker's like, it can save you from like sticky situations if you've got Berfomet Engrave, bring it back, and then you've got a Guardian Chimera live. It also acts as a protection as well, so like you could even get in a scenario where you end up just summoning by your barrier statue with it, and then you're protecting the barrier statue with Muckracker. It's just these 2 cards are super duper good. These 2 cards less so. So the theory for this was my theory going into the Tempai matchup was basically The problem with this deck is it's really weak to Raigeki and Lightning Storm and Dark Hole. Stuff that just blows up your board is really hard for this deck to deal with. You don't have necessarily ways of negating that if it's not monster effects. So the theory was you'll go IP and sequence into the Avramax. That Avramax is now protected by IP effect, and then you would use one of your Chimera fusion monsters, banish from grave, and just summon back your barrier statue. So this barrier statue is now, it can't be targeted for attack because you got the Avramax out. It's not necessary because the Chimera monsters are just like quick effects. You don't have to like commit it to the board. You can commit it just whenever they're going to special summon a monster, and then you stop it. So for example, in my head, they're going to special summon Chandra from hand. I'm going to banish, and then I'm going to get this card out. It's protected by Avramax. I'm looking good. Even if they destroy it after that, the Chandra's not coming out, and then I can go from there in the next turn and finish them off. Avramax, they can't destroy this card unless they summon the level 10. And in this scenario, that's going to be hard. And it just has, like, it's not going to die to Raigeki. It does, however, lose, like, what they will just do is just make seals, and then they can out to the next turn. But that was the theory. I didn't manage to get too much testing done, sadly. All of my theory in the week it was literally just theory. I was like practicing combos with the deck. I didn't get any actual playing against the decks that I was preparing for. So this was not as good as I expected it to be, sadly. So I'll probably swap this and the IP out for something else in the future. Probably Moon as well, maybe. But I have some other ideas for how Tempai can be beat, but I need to actually test them out in proper. Moving on to the fusions, you got 2 Berfomet, 1 Chimera, 2 Berfomet. Some people play one. I really don't think you can play just one. It's having to make sure your line's so much more robust. You can play through like shifter and whatnot. If you were actually going to cut any of them, I would say the Chimera is more cuttable, just because Berfomet it gives you a higher ceiling to what your deck can do, because it lets you just bridge into other plays and pop off essentially. Chimera's like safer, and if you were Fugal Roast or whatever, the Chimera is just like the safer go into. You don't have to like commit too much. You still get advantage off of this card. So really, I wouldn't cut any of these. I feel like these are too good. But if you were to, Chimera is maybe one that you could drop. Aerial Eater, as mentioned, is basically your second Berfomet, and you're going to use it basically to get into stronger monsters. Level 6 Fiend, just good. Magnum the Reliever, this card's the MVP. It's a light Fiend, it lets you bridge into the Fiendsmith stuff. It can recycle your fusion cards, specifically polymorph. So like a lot of times what can happen is maybe you've got your two polys in hand, and then your Frightfur Patchwork is dead. You shuffle a poly into the deck with the Magnum, and now that Frightfur Patchwork is live again. And then it's also just like, it's disruption, it's an extender. This card does it all. It's too good. Guardian Chimera, this is the big boss of the deck. You get this card out, insane advantage. I think everyone knows what this card does by now. Just big pops, big damage. 2 super poly targets, Garura and Mudragon. These, just terrific. Like I said, super poly, like, it was really good for me today, and in theory it's just so good into so many decks in the meta. For removing the Avramax and IP, I would maybe honestly consider just putting in more super poly targets. I'm not 100% sure yet. I'll need to experiment with some lines, but yeah, these paid dividends today. They were really strong. And finally, the DDD High Wave King Caesar. So I'll show you the line to get into this. Even without Fiendsmith combo, you can get into it. And basically the theory for the deck was, this card is so strong. It's 2 special summon negates. It's Solemn Warning for 2 monsters. If you get that out backed up with a Chimera Fusion, so you can go into Guardian Chimera, that's basically 4 disruptions. And there's not a lot of decks in the game that can actually play through that, if any. So that was the theory with this deck, is basically just get to a game state where you can set that, and if you couldn't, you could one of the combos, you'll have that and the barrier statue live as well, which is just like, well, they're really in trouble. But even if you couldn't get to that, you can maybe have just one backed up with the barrier statue. Maybe you have the negates live with Berfomet. Maybe you've got a pitch off of Chimera. You basically should, as long as you play well, you should be able to get to a point where you just have enough that you're going to survive, and then you can finish off your opponent the next turn, absolutely. So yeah, that's the theory with the deck. It's not going to be as good as Fiendsmith stuff, but, or without Engraver, basically. That card's just super duper strong, but you can still make really disgusting boards, and the deck's very good at playing through most hand traps. You lose a bit to Droll, Nibiru, and specifically Dominus Impulse. That card really, really done me over today. But Fubaros isn't actually too bad, because you can literally just set the Chimera Fusion, and then you've got Guardian Chimera live. Like, it's not too bad. Ash, you can play through Ash. Imperm, Veil are really good at playing through those cards. And even Droll, like, there are ways to play around it as well. So, yeah, the deck is very solid. It's not going to, again, it's not as good as if you had your Fiendsmith Engravers. That card just makes your combos a lot more solid, more robust. But for what it is, it's very strong. So onto the side deck, we got 3 Alpha, the Master of Beasts. In theory, this card is really good. I sided it in a lot. I literally never drew it once, sadly. But in theory, this card is really good. So it's 3,000 attack. You can just drop it down. You can run over something, and then you can bounce it back to your hand. You can actually summon it again. But additionally, you can bounce Berfomet with it, because they're both beasts, and you can get more bounces. And you're not actually losing material, because you just fuse with the Berfomet in hand. And additionally, this is a beast as well. So it's also not necessarily dead in hand, because you can use it as fusion material. Like, there's just lots of applications for this card. So I really liked the theory behind it in the side deck, but I never actually got to see how it would truly perform, just because I never drew it, sadly. The only decks which I wouldn't really side it against would have been Centurion, because it's not big enough to run over any of their endboard pieces, and Voiceless Voice for the same reason. Instead, for those, you would play Droplet, because it makes their monsters become small enough that you can run over them, and then it's just like, quick play negate. Usually I'm not the biggest fan of Droplet, because I feel like you'd sometimes have to give up too many resources to get your money's worth for it, but in this deck is good, because you can like chain it to Eclipse, send off the Eclipse, send off another monster. Just lots of scenarios where I think it's really strong. If you did find yourself playing a deck that has too many, it's going to set up too many gates, and it's too many disruptions, and it's too much for you, one Droplet to deal with. That's what the Dark Rule No More is for. That card just deals the lot on board. You don't really want to use it against like Azamina Snake Eye Fire King, because they've got so many graveyard disruptions. This card's just not too particularly good against that, but there's some stuff like Voiceless Voice, Dark Ruler's like really strong against that. 3-dimensional barrier. This card's disgusting. It's gross. You're going first. This is just a lingering floodgate that's really strong against basically every rogue deck in the game. Yeah, this card's just disgusting. It's good in the mirror. It's good against like Centurion. It's good against Tempies. Yeah, super, super strong card. And to finish it off, I've just got 3 additional targets for your Chimera combos. So the King Tiger Wang, who was actually meant to be a Kowaku Mirror Doom, but I couldn't find mine anywhere, sadly. So I just put this in instead, because there's some decks where the barrier statue isn't going to be enough. Like, for example, Azumino combos, those monsters are dark. The barrier statue isn't stopping that, because it only stops dark monsters. It stops everything but dark monsters. So I was like, but then in the Fire King variants, this is still actually probably better, because you stop the Fire King stuff. and that's like maybe worth it because you can play through the Azamina stuff on its own, like not too hard. It's like once it gets layered on top of that, it becomes a problem. But there's like other dark decks out there that people could be playing. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but in those scenarios, you would just go for the Wangu instead. Red Resonator, this is just a time card. If you really, really want to be scummy, you can just do like a disgustingly long combo. Some of the Red Resonator gain life points. If you really want to do that. It never came up for me today. I don't think I actually signed it in once, but just in theory, you can summon it quick, you can summon it slow. There for time. That's the point of the card. And lastly, Invader of Darkness. So I know I have at my locals, there's one a member of the Runic Council. So I just thought it would be really funny if I paired against him and I could summon this card against him just to see his reaction. I couldn't decide on the final side deck card, so I was like, it was that or End of Anubis, and I was like, the Invader of Darkness is just funnier. It did end up on the day there were actually 4 people playing Runics at the OTS Championship. I ended up playing one of them, not the person I prepared for, technically. And I didn't actually summon Invader of Darkness against them, but yeah, it was there just for that matchup, just if it ever came up. So my matches were Dragon Link, Runic White Forest, Azamina Snake Eye Fire Kings, Centurion Bestials, and then lastly Tempai. And I didn't manage to beat the Tempai, but I did beat everyone else. I think the Tempai is definitely the deck's worst matchup just because of Regekis and Lightning Storms. Other stuff isn't as big a deal, but like, you know how it is when you're playing Tempai. They always draw those cards. That's just how it is. So I'm going to work on some other combos that I think will be able to set you up with better boards into that, but I don't have them yet. I'll need to do a little work in the lab. But for what it is at the moment, I'll show you just some of the like 1-card combos that you can do with this deck. And you can try it for yourself. Perhaps when you have ideas how to better expand the combos, and you can just let me know. Maybe we can talk about it. So yeah, cool. Yes, so here's the first combo. So basically starting this off, you've just got Gazelle, any fusion material you can fuse with Gazelle, and then just discard. So yeah, here's how it goes. It's quite a long line. Normal summon Gazelle effect, you're going to add your Chimera Fusion. You're going to activate the Chimera Fusion and fuse the Gazelle and your fusion material in hand to summon the Berfomet. You're going to go Gazelle, Chainlink 1, Berfomet, Chainlink 2. This is just because the add from Gazelle is a little more important. And then with Berfomet mill, you're either going to mill your Chaos Betrayer or your Barrier Statue. The order isn't too important. For this combo, if you had the Tiger King instead of the Barrier Statue, you want to mill that first. So we'll just do that for like sake of consistency. So you mill your Barrier Statue, and then Gazelle, you're going to search yourself your Nightmare Apprentice. Bring that up to the camera. Yeah, Chimera Fusion Engrave. Effect of the Chimera Fusion, you're going to add it from your grave into your hand. You're going to discard an extra card from hand to special summon the Nightmare Apprentice. Effect of the Nightmare Apprentice search, you're going to add yourself a Cornfield Coatl. Effect of Cornfield Coatl, you're going to discard it and you're going to search for a Big Wing Berfomet. Then you're going to activate Chimera Fusion again using the Big Wing Berfomet and your Berfomet on field to summon Magnum the Reliever. Then you're going to use the effect of Big Wing Berfomet because it was used for fusion summon. You can special summon back an illusion from your grave. You're going to summon back the Coatl. You're going to use the effect of Magnum the Reliever to shuffle the Chimera Fusion into your deck and then just draw a random card off of that. Then you're going to link off the Magnum the Reliever into Fiendsmith Requiem. Now you're going to link the Requiem and the Coatl into Fiendsmith Sequence. Effective Sequence, you're going to shuffle back the Requiem and the Magnum the Reliever to summon your Aerial Eater. Effective Aerial Eater, you can mill your other, your Chaos Betrayer. And then you're going to link off the Nightmare Apprentice and Fiendsmith Sequence to summon Muckracker. You're going to use the effect of the Chaos Betrayer, banish the Fiendsmith Sequence, and this is important, banishing the barrier statue to summon itself back. Then you're going to overlay those two to summon your DDD High Wave King Caesar. And then finally you're going to use the Muckracker effect, discard the card that you had, or maybe not necessarily that card, just whatever you want, to get your Big Wing Berfomet, and then effect a Big Wing Berfomet. You're just going to search yourself a Chimera Fusion and a Gazelle to hand. Set the Chimera Fusion, and there you go. That's like the basic combo. So what this has you set up with, you have the Chimera Fusion, you've got materials on field and materials in the hand, which is going to get you into your Guardian Chimera with 2 pops. You've got a 2 material High Wave King Caesar, of course. And the Berfomet Engrave can banish itself to special summon the banished barrier statue, which is important. That's why it's important you banish it with the Betrayer. Make sure it gets in the banish zone. Worth noting, the Betrayer banishes for costs, so even if they bestealed it, it's not the end of the world. You wouldn't get to your DDD High Wave King Caesar, but this is still going to be live no matter what. And additionally, the Muckracker protects these cards from destruction effects, which is the route I think I'm going to go with my anti-Tempai combos in the future. Is probably leave Muckracker on board because it can protect multiple monsters from destruction by tributing, so there's probably better ways than the IP lines of going about it. But yeah, so that's the basic 1-card combo with Gazelle and Fusion Material, and then just a discard for Nightmare Apprentice, which you're going to have. And the final combo I've got is just if you've got Cornfield Coatl and a Fusion Material in hand. This will have to be a Fiend for this combo to work, so it has to be a Fiend monster, sadly. And this combo would work similarly if you had Nightmare Apprentice in hand. But yeah, so you start by using the effect of Cornfield Coatl, discard the grave, and add yourself your Mirror Swordknight. You're going to summon the Mirror Swordknight, tribute it with this effect in order to summon Gazelle. Effect of Gazelle will get you your Chimera Fusion. You're going to use the Chimera Fusion to fuse the Gazelle and the Fiend in your hand for the Chimera King. Then Chainlink 1 Gazelle to search, Chainlink 2 Chimera King to discard in the end phase. You're going to add your Nightmare Apprentice, Chimera Fusion effect, add it back to hand. Nightmare Apprentice, you discard your whatever extra card. Special summon itself, effect on summon to search. You're actually going to add your Master Tau. You're going to use the Chimera Fusion to fuse the Chimera King and the Master Tau to summon back your Magnum the Reliever. And then here, Master Tau triggers, which lets you special summon an illusion from your grave. And you're going to want to summon Coatl instead of the Mirror Swordknight, because the Mirror Swordknight could get bestealed. So it's better to just summon the Coatl. Effect of Magnum the Reliever, you're going to shuffle the Chimera Fusion into your deck, and then just get another card. And from here, you're going to link the Magnum the Reliever into Fiendsmith Requiem, and then Requiem and Coatl into Sequence. You're going to use the effect of Sequence and shuffle in the Requiem and the Gazelle in order to summon your Berfomet. You're going to use the effect of Berfomet to melee the barrier statue from your deck. And then here, the way I've been playing the combo until now, you've used Master Tau, so you're locked into only special summoning illusions from the graveyard from now on, so you can't do any gimmicks with Muckracker or Chaos Betrayer. You could maybe edit the lines so you could. I think there's probably a better way to do this. I've just not figured it out yet. But what I'm doing from here is I go Nightmare Apprentice and Berfomet into IP, and then IP and Sequence into Avramax. So you've got your and basically indestructible Avramax live. And then on your opponent's turn, what you're going to do is use the Chimera in the grave in order to special summon back your barrier statue. And then on that chain, because you banish the Chimera for cost, you can use the Berfomet to banish it, target the Chimera, and summon it back before the barrier statue is on field. So you get your Chimera out, you get your barrier statue out, and that way you've got your negate with Mirror Swordknight live because the Chimera's on field. You've got your targeting protection with Coatl Engrave. You've got Crusadia Avramax protecting all your monsters from battle, and then it's also just like a semi-towers monster because you've summoned it with IP. Yeah, that's essentially it. Like, the idea is just lock them out of summoning where possible. So yeah, those are just the two basic combos. This one's obviously a bit weaker, and I do think there's ways to improve it, but it's still fairly strong. Like, this is nothing to sneeze at. This board's pretty tough to crack. Yeah, thanks for watching. If you've got any suggestions for improving the combo, or if this helped you at all, let me know. And thanks.